Can we hear me? Can we all hear me? Online participants, good morning all. So I will assume we all can hear me. So we'll be proceeding straight to today's lecture. We will be looking at the topic user access management, securing the gateways to your system. You as a person. So I'm Victor Idono by name, and I will be taking this class today, as we've all known, I guess. So, by way of introduction, the human factor is an important aspect when it comes to user management. In our previous class, we looked at operating system security. Now, going beyond the operating system, we need to look at this aspect of the topic, user and access management. How do you manage rules and responsibilities of users on the operating system? So that takes us to the human factor. Users are often the weakest link in the communication chain. We've talked about that, we've mentioned it over and over again. Human is the weakest link in the information security chain. Poor user practices can compromise even the most secure system. In other words, no matter how secure your system is, no matter how latest and updated your system is, if you have poor user practices, you can actually compromise the entire system. So that is dependent on the knowledge of the user, not the sophistication of the systems, security systems put in place. Okay, so poor practices can compromise even the most secure system. Access management, the process of controlling who can access what resources. So we talk about user access management. The user is the human, then the access management talks about the process of controlling who can access what resources, which is a critical component of the operating system security. We'll all agree that 95% of all successful cyber attacks is caused by human error. Okay, this was a result, a publication by IBM Cybersecurity Intelligence Index, that from their findings, 95% of all successful cyber attacks is caused by human error, meaning the right infrastructure can be in place, the right solutions can be in place, the most sophisticated, most secure algorithms can be deployed in encrypting files, but once human error is involved, there's likelihood for a successful cyber attack, which makes it very important for every one of us to take this aspect of operating system security very serious. No matter how secure your operating system is, no matter how updated it is, if the human practices are not as up to standard as required, then there's that likelihood of a successful cyber attack. So moving forward, The human factor in security is the weakest link or the strongest asset. Now, we can all agree that the human factor, even though it is considered as the weakest link, it can also be the strongest asset. So, what makes the difference basically? It is from the ability of what that human is doing, what the human factor is doing. So if you're not doing the right practices, you become the weakest link. But on the other hand, if you're implementing the right practices, then you can become the strongest asset. So in the realm of security, technology often takes the center stage, which advanced systems and sophisticated algorithms promising protection from threats. So technology is always at the center stage. We all agree that new innovations are evolving on daily basis. Different things are coming up, different security models are being implemented, especially when there is a hack or an unidentified vulnerability on a particular technology. There's a need for a higher one or an advanced version that is more secure, more efficient, more reliable, and possibly more functionalities. So we all agree that every day technology is evolving. So one critical element is often overlooked, which is the human factor. Human beings with their complex behavior, emotions, and decision-making process can be both the weakest link and the strongest asset in any security system. So because of our daily lives, because of what we do on daily basis, sometimes we are juggling professionalism with society, with our personal lives, with family, etc. It's could be complex, and to that there's that likelihood of human error to always come into play. However, if this is also properly managed, the human can also become the strongest asset, and this can apply to anybody. It's not unique to a specific set of people, race, gender, or anything. Yeah, it can be anybody. The weakest link can also be the strongest asset. So, percentage of claims by breach from Willis Tower Watson Cyber Insurance claims that 66% of employee negligence or malfeasance. About 18% is for external threats. These are percentage of claims by breach. Okay, 66 is by employee negligence, about 18% by external threat. Then we'll have about 3% for social engineering. We'll have about 2% for network business interruption, 2% for cyber extortion, then the other is about 9%. So we'll actually get to realize that the most important one here is the employee negligence. And in most cases, it can also be the human error. Either an employee forget to do something he or she is supposed to do, employee skipped a policy out of the listed policies, a particular procedure. Skipping one of them could lead to a data breach. So, yes, we can say humans are prone to errors, oversight, and lapses in judgment. They can fall victim to social engineering attacks, and they can accidentally click on phishing links or fail to follow security protocol. I think there's a trend lately within the past 2 3 days. There's actually a wedding that happened, and from that wedding, a lot of malicious links have evolved. Different persons promoting different content, yeah, purporting to be for different programs. There's a particular group where one of those multiple links was, posted. And of course, it is malicious, it is a phishing link, and it contains series of phishing links and all of that. So sometimes you might, out of curiosity, out of the social aspect of the human, might want to click on some links, either to get information, to get more knowledge, more skill, or get more updated with what's happening around you. And you might actually fall prey to these clickbaits, you might fall prey to phishing links, or you might just simply tend to neglect security policies put in place. And in all of this, this can also lead to the human error, human factor we are talking about. So these vulnerabilities can be exploited by malicious actors to gain unauthorized access and, of course, steal data or disrupt the operations that is ongoing, either in business, individual, as the case may be. So, in all of this, the human factor still revolves around everything we do, and there's that likelihood that yes, something can happen, something can go wrong, especially when it comes to human. It is not machines or bots that have been pre-programmed to do a particular task. So moving forward, the human factor, which is the weakest link in data protection, can also be a company's greatest asset. Okay, so the human factor being the weakest link can also be a company's greatest asset. We'll all agree that a lot of organizations, a lot of multinationals in the world today, they have different leads, CISOs, and all of that. These are human, also playing critical roles, becoming the strongest asset to these organizations. So we all agree that a company's greatest asset, which is its employees, can also be its weakest link, especially in an area wherein mobility and accessibility play a huge role in enhancing productivity. So this is important for every organization. And employees' negligence can put an organization at risk. No matter how sophisticated you are, the strongest asset can also become the weakest link by the time negligence come into play. That is why I will always recommend and I will always say, do not be the weakest link in your team. Do not be the weakest link in your department, in your organization, in your family, wherever you find yourself. And for you to evade that, you have to ensure that you're keeping yourself up to date with best practices, best global practices. 78% of organizations have suffered from from at least one data breach over the past 2 years. This is a real fact. Only 8% of organizations cited external attacks as the main reason for a data breach, despite the growing concern for cybercrime. So it means a good number of successful attacks taking place and happening originate from insider. So there's that tendency of always an insider attack. Employee mobility may Employee mobility may also prove disastrous if not managed. So there's also a need to ensure that we manage employee mobility. 35% of organizations cited loss of laptops or other mobile devices as the main cause of a data breach. So a lot of times there's a need for employees to commute from point A to point B. There's a need for employees to move from the office to their homes. And because of possibility of remote work, there's a need for employees sometimes to carry the laptop they're using at the office to their home or even on the go in an attempt to work on the go. But this also has its own challenges. And if these laptops get into the wrong hands, there's that likelihood and possibility of a successful cyber attack. Sometimes, a lot of times in the environment we live in, if your laptop, for example, gets missing, you can be rest assured in the next 1 week or 2 weeks, it's going to land in, for those in Abuja, it's going to land in a place like Banex. For those in Lagos, it's going to land in a place like the Computer Village. But in developed countries, the hardware is not really a priority to them. What's priority to them is the data sitting on the hard drive. So a lot of times, 35% of organizations cited losses of laptops or other mobile devices, which led to a successful data breach. So the moment a mobile device gets missing, curiosity will make the attacker to delve into trying to extract the data sitting on these devices, which can lead to a successful data breach. So there's a need, if this is an identified concern, a threat, then there's a need also to put preventive measures in place to restrict as much as possible access to data in the case of a misplaced device, a stolen device belonging to an employee. So the key human factors that contribute to security vulnerability includes one, lack of awareness. Many individuals are unaware of cybersecurity risks and best practices, making them easy target for attackers. A lot of times too, we can also take this lack of awareness to be individuals not paying attention to updating what they know. A lot of times you see persons will tell you they are certified or they've learned. No, the reality is what you learned 2, 3 years back may no longer be applicable today. We'll all agree that the WhatsApp account or the WhatsApp application we were using 2, 3 years back is no longer the same WhatsApp application we are using today. 2, 3 years back for WhatsApp application is even quite a long time. If let's look at the WhatsApp account we're using as at January this year, this is just June of 2024. A lot of modifications have taken place. A lot of security features have been added to it. A lot of upgrades, updates, more features have been added. A lot of functionalities have been added. So there is a need for everyone to become aware, especially employees managing sensitive data sitting on any operating system belonging to an organization, belonging to an individual or a department. So lack of awareness is a major human factor that contribute to security vulnerabilities. Next is complacency. Even when aware of the risk, people may become complacent and neglect security measures due to overconfidence or a false sense of security. Yes, this is an important aspect we need to consider, we need to look into, because you think or you feel that you have implemented the best security practices, you feel you are untouchable, you are unhackable, you are very secure. Overconfidence is something else that can easily lead to a successful cyber attack. So and when you become overconfident, you become negligent to security measures, and you have this false sense of security. If you're asked, how secure are you? The best response to that would be you need to go and confirm, because you're only secure as to the last time you checked, not as to this current time. Between the last time you checked and now, even if it's a 5 minutes, even if it's a 10 minutes, a 1 day, 2 weeks, 1 month, there is possibility for new things to have taken place. So there's that need and there's that tendency for you to actually get back, revalidate to be sure of your current status security wise before you can respond to such kind of a question. That way you take out every possibility of being overconfident or every false sense of security you might be having. Next is social engineering. Attackers often manipulate human emotions and trust to trick individuals into divulging sensitive information or performing actions that can compromise security. Remember, this is not applicable this is applicable to everyone. Sometimes things are happening on day-to-day basis, either political, social, economical, etc. And attackers tend to use them as opportunities to lure their victims through social engineering into revealing information that they're not supposed to reveal. For example, we have different trends happening. They jump into the trends on daily basis, and they can use them as a means to successfully carry out their social engineering attack. And of course, unsuspecting users, unsuspecting members of the public, unsuspecting individuals can easily fall prey to this. I can assure you, because of the trends happening currently, a lot of emails will be rolling out, whether we like it or yes. Knowing fully well that a lot of employees are interested in gist, interested in what's happening out there, interested in the latest gist, either wedding, political, etc. And because they would want to read more, they have that tendency of clicking links and falling prey to some of these factors that contribute to security vulnerabilities. Next is insider threats. Employees or other insider may intentionally or unintentionally cause harm due to negligence, malice, or a desire for personal gain. So sometimes insider attacks may not outrightly be from disgruntled employee. It can also be due to negligence. It can also be due to malice or a desire for personal gain. Being disgruntled is different from a desire for personal gain. Okay, disgruntled is like you are angry with the employer, with the employer or the company. But if you're doing it for personal gain, there's a benefit you want to achieve. It can be financial, it can be promotion, it can be stealing of data and selling elsewhere, etc. As the case may be. We all agree there's this trend currently happening or currently everywhere about Nigerians data being accessible on some websites for as low as 100 naira. So how that particular trend happened, it's a story for another day. So the strongest asset, while humans can be a source of vulnerability, they also possess unique strengths that can bolster security. Yes, why human is the weakest link, they can also be a unique strength that can, put security in place. It can be through qualified personnel, through information gathering of right information gathering, and of course having the right team working together. So humans have the ability to one detect abnormalities because it is not why human being can be the weakest link. We'll also agree that humans have the ability to detect anomalies. Okay, so people can often sense when something is amiss, noticing subtle cues or patterns that may indicate a security breach. So why humans that out of negligence or out of lack of awareness are being the weakest link, the knowledgeable ones, the skilled ones can also they also have the ability to detect anomalies, making them one of the strongest assets that an organization can have. So humans also have the ability to adapt to new threats. Unlike machines, humans can learn and adapt their behavior to counter evolving threats and attacks or attack techniques. So, as threats are evolving, humans can quickly adapt to it and make the necessary changes, modifications, corrections as the need may be. Unlike machines that have been pre-programmed in a particular way for a particular kind of either vulnerability, malware, as the case may be. Humans also have the ability to think creatively. This is a unique feature of humans. Good enough, artificial intelligence is coming into play and is gradually also creeping into this aspect of creative thinking. So human ingenuity can be leveraged to develop innovative solutions and strategies aimed at security of a particular system. So there's this aspect of human that handles or talks about the ingenuity in creative thinking. So this is an ability of human towards becoming a strongest asset to an organization or to a system. Next, humans have the ability to build trust. Building trust and rapport with employees and stakeholders can foster a culture of security awareness and encourage proactive reporting of suspicious activity. So, with this is an aspect that human can venture into. Like I earlier mentioned, artificial intelligence also is coming into this aspect gradually. So, addressing the human factor. To leverage the human factor effectively, organizations need to take a holistic security approach. To address human factor effectively, organizations need to take a holistic approach to security. This is very, very important. So, they can achieve this by carrying out awareness and training, Yes, they can achieve this by carrying out awareness and training. Educate employees about cybersecurity risk and best practices, emphasizing on the importance of their role in protecting sensitive information. So it's important for a continuous awareness and training. Like we always say, cybersecurity is our shared responsibility, and security it's a continuous state, not an end state. So there is always a need for continuous awareness and training. Why? Because threats are evolving on daily basis. Technologies are happening and innovations are taking place on daily basis. So there is that need for continuous awareness and training. We all agree that the version of Microsoft, the version of Windows or any operating system you started using as at January 2024 is different from the version of operating system you're currently using. A lot of your mobile operating systems have updated, have upgraded, same as your PC or desktop, wherever. Linux environment, Windows environment, Mac environment, upgrades are happening. So as upgrades are happening, there's also a continuous need for awareness and training. Next is having clear policies and procedures. Your policies should be clear, your procedures should be clear. Establish clear policies and procedures for handling sensitive data and responding to security incidents. Don't make your policies too ambiguous. Don't make the protocol involved through too strenuous. If it's beginning to have too many stops or too many chain of communication, implementation becomes a challenge. So ensure as an organization you have clear policies and procedures. Then user-friendly security measures. Make your security measures as easy and intuitive as possible for employees to use. Very important. Minimizing the risk of errors or workaround. So a lot of times it is not by how complex you put your security measures in. If it's too complex, being that it's a human that's going to be iterating, that's going to be working with them, it creates some set of possibilities for attacks and human errors to actually manifest. So, as much as possible, ensure your security measures are user friendly, easy to use, clear policies and procedures. Be positive or have a positive reinforcement. Recognize and reward employees who demonstrate good security practices, fostering a culture of security awareness. The more you recognize and reward employees that are doing well, the more the awareness is going around to all employees, and the more they will be interested in making changes, striving to also get recognized. Okay, so next is continuous monitoring and improvement. Always ensure you are regularly assessing and updating your security measures to address emerging threats and vulnerabilities. It's very important. Continuous monitoring and improvement is important, and you have to ensure you keep doing it. So before we proceed, any questions so far on what all we've discussed? If you have any questions, those that are physically present and the online participants, kindly proceed with your questions while I also check the online environment for questions that we might be having here. Physical participants, any question?
No questions from the physical participant.
All right, thank you very much.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? No
Yes,
questions okay. From the
yes, I
physical
can.
participant.
All right, thank. Okay, so let's proceed in the absence of any question for now. So the human factor is a complex and multifaceted aspect of security. By recognizing both the vulnerabilities and strengths of human beings, organizations can develop comprehensive security strategies that can leverage the best of both worlds. While the human can be the weakest link, you should also not forget that they can also be the strongest asset. So it is a matter of recognizing both the vulnerabilities and the strength that is inherent in human beings. Then organizations can develop a comprehensive security strategies to leverage the best of both. So by empowering employees to be proactive defenders, companies can create a resilient security posture that protect against both internal and external threats. So while the human being or the human factor is the humans are the weakest link in the information security chain, organizations can also capitalize on them by simply empowering employees to be proactive defenders. And the moment that happens, automatically that they move from the point of being the weakest link to the point of being the strongest asset. So it's important for us to identify these two aspects, the weakest and the strongest, and you work proactively to be on the strongest aspect. So the importance of user and access management. One, protecting sensitive data. Ensure only authorized users can access confidential information. So a lot of times, access and user and access management simply aims to protecting sensitive data by ensuring only authorized users can access confidential information. That way, it's not everybody that has access to a particular resource or a particular infrastructure that have access to the information sitting on it. So user and access management aims at ensuring only authorized users can access a confidential information. Next is preventing unauthorized access. That is limiting the potential for damage from malicious actors. Another is maintaining system integrity, which aims at preventing unauthorized changes or deletion of data. Unauthorized modification can be considered a data breach. Yes. So it's important for organizations. One of the importance of the user and access management is aimed at maintaining system integrity. The last but not the least, for one of the importance is compliance with regulations, which the user and access management helps organizations meet their legal and industry requirements with relation to compliance regulations. So, user account management best practices. User account management best practices includes one, use strong, unique passwords or passphrases. For you to have a strong user account management in place, there are some best practices you need to put in place, which include using strong, unique passwords or passphrases. Next, don't reuse passwords across different systems. A good number of us we use strong passwords, but they are really not unique. Then some we we use we reuse passwords across different platforms. I've handled a session where 90% of the class, right, they all use one password for all of their social media environment, all their social media platforms. They use one password. So best practices for user account management include don't use passwords across different systems. I believe in the earlier part of this training, we've discussed about this particular one about these ones listed here. Then always ensure you're enabling multi-factor authentication, MFA, not just two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. Then periodically review and revoke unnecessary accounts that are no longer necessary. Review them, review the rules, review the permissions they have, and you can even outrightly revoke those accounts. Okay, if an employee leaves a system, maybe the employee still has access to the official company email, you can limit the permission on that account. If it's an email, take for example, you can disable sending out email, left with receiving emails. If there are prospects or possibilities of that particular email will likely still be receiving correspondences. So you can limit or actually revoke unnecessary accounts, and this should be done periodically. If in your policies is stated periodically, it will be easier for you to always check periodically. User account management common mistakes. One, sharing passwords. Because we feel we need to grant access to someone, to a colleague, we easily share passwords. This is my password, please help me do XYZ. This is my PIN, please assist me do XYZ. Or I might likely not be available at XYZ period of time. So in that case, this is my password. Just in case if I am not available. And that is simply sharing of passwords. Then next is using easily guessable passwords. Of course, that is clear. If you use a password that is easy to guess, either the password is related to a spouse, a partner, a family member, your your personal details such as, let's say, your date of birth, local government, place where you were born, etc. These are easily guessable passwords, so you should always ensure you don't fall prey to these common mistakes. Next is failing to disable accounts of former employees. Like we just discussed, if an employee has left the system, it's best you disable the account. So if you fail to disable accounts of former employees, then you are not implementing the right user account management policies. So next is authentication versus authorization. What is authentication? What is authorization? So at this point, I believe these are straightforward. Who are you? And authorization. Can you do that? I need the class to be interactive at this point. Who can give us what he or she understand by authentication and authorization? Contributions, please. Those physically present and those online, anyone can respond. What do you understand by authentication and authorization? Anybody?
Just sit down.
Anybody?
Yes. Morning, sir. All right. For me,
Good morning.
I see authentication as the process of seeing if giving access to someone, that is, do you have access to the particular platform or not? While
Morning,
authorization,
sir.
well, authorization is what can you do if you access the account?
Okay. Okay. Yes, thank you very much for that wonderful response. Any other person?
All right, so I say authentication is giving someone access to a particular account or platform, while authorization is the activities he or she can perform in that platform.
Fantastic. Yes, yes, yes.
While
Any
authorization
other
is the
person?
activities he or she can perform in that platform.
Fantastic. Yes, yes, yes.
While
Any
authorization is
other
the
person
activities he or she
here
can perform in that
from
platform.
online contributors? Authentication is a process of verifying a user against their respective, while authorization is granting permission or access to use a system or an account. Yes. Okay, so yes, thank you all for these wonderful responses. We are all on track with regards to authorization and authentication. Authentication answers the question of who are you? That is verifying the user identity. You need to authenticate every user on your system. So it's like in physical security, authenticating who has access to a particular building or resource. You need some form of, let's say, an RFID card embedded on your ID card and use that as your means of authentication to gain access to the premises or to gain access to the system. So, who are you? A means of verifying the user's identity. Then, authorization deals with what can you do? What permissions do you have if you're on the system? So authorization comes after authentication. When you have been authenticated, you are now in the system. The next question is what can you do? What is your level of access? What permissions do you have? Okay, so like we mentioned earlier, periodically review permissions of your previous employees. So authorization answers that question of what permissions does an employee have or does a successfully authenticated user has. So we need to look at that. So authentication versus authorization. Authentication usually is the first step of a security access control. Remember, I just mentioned that authorization comes after authentication. So it is usually the first step of a security access control, while authorization usually comes after authentication. So next is authentication verifies the user's identity. Authorization grants or denies permission to the user. So they are both different in their own ways and they are all unique. They are all required in the system. So take for example, authentication will determine what means can someone gain access to your PC. So if your operating system is locked, authentication will determine what kind of credential is this person bringing. Is he an admin user or an ordinary user? Then if he has been authenticated, he has gained access to the system, the next question is what kind of rights or permission can this user carry out on the system? So it's important to identify these two things. Next is authentication. Common methods include username, passwords, security questions, answers, code sent either via SMS or email. This is authentication. But for authorization, permissions are granted and monitored by the organization. So under authentication, it uses biometric data like fingerprints, that is what you are, face recognition, retina scan, etc. It can be what you are, what you have, what you know. And I believe I've mentioned and explained these three in times past: what you have, what you are, what you know. Then it can also be a combination of any or all of the three. So next is common methods include for authorization. The common methods include role-based access control and attribute-based access control. Role-based access control and attribute-based access control. So authentication is visible and changeable by the user, while authorization is not visible or changeable by the user. So in other words, I as a user to a particular system, I can decide to change my login password. Sometimes I might even have the liberty to change my login email, my login username, etc. So in authentication, it's visible and changeable by the user. But in authorization, the user does not have the right to change what has been assigned to him or her or to that particular account. So authorization is not visible, neither is it changeable. So what does when you talk about authentication and authorization, what it does is it verifies users' identity. Authentication verifies users' identity, while authorization determines users' level of access. After verifying the identity, the next is the level of access. So next, what does it mean? It proves a user is who they say they are. Authentication proves that a user is whom or is who they say they are. Then, while authorization validates the user's permission to access certain resources. If you're requesting access to certain resources, authorization will verify and validate that yes, you as the user, you actually have the permission to access that particular resource you're requesting for. If you don't, of course, you're not going to have access to it. So when it configures, it performs first to access system or network. So authentication is performed when it's configured, it's performed first to access the system or network, while authorization is performed after authentication. Then who configures it? In authentication, it is conducted on the user's end. But in authorization, it is conducted on the organization's end. So a user can configure, I am the user. In authentication, I decide what I want. I configure it. What kind of password do I want? What kind of email do I want to use? How secure do I want my password to be? The entire configuration process happens at my end when it comes to authentication. But at the authorization, for authorization, it is not at the user end, rather it is conducted on the organization's end. So the next is how it works. Authentication works by it's authenticated with user's password, biometrics, or security tokens. That is a combination of what they know, what they are, and what they have. What they know in this case is the password. They know it. What they are is their biometrics, either fingerprint, facial recognition, voice recognition, motion pattern, then or what they have, which is the security tokens, either digital or hard security token. For authorization, authorized based on settings established by the organization. Authorization is based on settings established by the organization. Okay. So next is how data is transmitted. Data is transmitted through ID tokens. While for authorization, data is transmitted through access tokens. There are what types? For authentication, there's single factor authentication, there's two factor authentication, there's multi factor authentication. single, two-factor, and multi-factor. Single, 2FA, MFA. Why for authorization, it is ABAC, RBAC, mandatory access control, discretionary access control, etc. So let's look at this case study. Let's look at this case study, which is the Twitter hack of 2020. First of all, before we look at the case study, any questions on what we have discussed so far? Any questions on what we've discussed so far? If you have any question, please let's go ahead and review them. Questions, please.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead, I can hear you. Questions, please.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, the physical student are asking you. You need to explain the last slide. That A, B, A, C, and R, B, A, C. So they need more explanation on it.
All right. All right. Any other question?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Let me attend to that. R the first is the ABAC. ABAC stands for attribute based access control. ABAC, attribute based access control. This is a model for authorization that grants access to resources based on a user's attribute. Okay, is a model for authorization that grants access based on a user's attribute. Attributes such as the role, the department, the job function, the the security clearance level, the location, time of the day, the device used, etc. So it's simply an access control model that grants access to a user based on the resources or the attribute of that user. And like I mentioned earlier, the attributes can be the role, can be the department, can be its location. Take, for example, those working in the headquarter, their location is headquarter. The kind of access they have is different from what those working at branch locations have. Okay, yes. So these can also be the kind of device they are using. A lot of times, if you go to if you go to some offices, what the kind of devices management staff are using is different from the kind of devices that lower staff are using. So it all depends on, these are some of the rules that exist in the rule-based access control, which is the attribute, rather the attribute-based access control, which is based on the attributes of a particular user. Then the ABAC is also more flexible and dynamic. Okay, it's more flexible and dynamic approach to access control compared to the traditional role-based access control, which is the next one we're going to be talking about. So in the ABAC, is used to determine whether a user has the necessary attributes to access a particular resource, such as file, folder, application, etc. This approach actually ensure that access is granted only to users who have the required attribute, reducing the risk of unauthorized access. So a lot of times, take for example, some organizations, if you are not in a particular level, if you don't have some particular attribute, your role, you cannot access some resources. Some you can't even access some offices within the organization. Yes, so it all depends on the access, the role, the attribute of a user. Why the next is the was it the RBAC. The RBAC simply stands for the role-based access control, which is a control, or it can be considered as a security framework that grants access to resources based on a user's role in an organization. So in the RBAC, its access is determined by the role, or by the role a particular user plays. Okay, access is determined by the role a user plays rather than their individual identity. So take for example, I might be having some certain attributes in an organization, and the position I might be in, let's say in a branch location. I'm not in the head office. I might be in a branch location. By location, remember, is my attribute. But coming to the RBAC, it is based on my role. Whether I'm in the branch location or I'm at the headquarters, it doesn't matter. What is my role? Am I the one in charge of, let's say, security of the system? For the fact that my rule is that it doesn't care about my attribute, it doesn't care about the device I'm using, I'm granted access. Okay, so the RBC is a framework that grants access to resources based on rules, based on functions that a user carries out. So it works in one rules, which is defined is through defined rules that align with the job function or responsibilities, such as the, let's say, the manager, employee, or administrator, whatever your job role is, irrespective of where you find yourself, irrespective of your attributes, you can perform your role. You can have access to resources based on your role. Then it also works by permission, which is assigning permission to each role, specifying what resources, um, let's say, what kind of files you have access to, what kind of folders, what can you do, what can you not do. So take, for example, let's use the banking sector, for example, whether you're in the headquarter or not, if you are a regional manager, you must not necessarily be at the headquarter, but there are some rules by virtue of, but there are some access you will have by virtue of your rule that even those at the headquarter cannot have that kind of access. So in RBAC, it is based on the role you are implementing or you're carrying out in that organization. Then next, users, which assigns users to roles, granting them the permission associated with that role. So basically, the RBAC, that is the role-based access control, simplifies access management and reduces errors, and also tend to increase the security by things like, one, the limiting access to unauthorized resources, ensuring users only have necessary permission, what we call least level privilege, then making it easier to manage access to resources. So basically, RBS is actually widely used in organizations to enforce access control and comply with the security of the organization. I believe this is clear enough. If you have any question, please go ahead and ask. Any question? Let me check through the online to see if there are questions there. The person that asked the question, please kindly confirm if it's clear enough. Any question?
Yes, there is question.
Okay, please go ahead.
Good day, sir.
Yes. Let me check through the online to see if there are questions there.
Just
Yeah. So when you started, you said human being contribute a higher risk when it comes to security, and according to what you said during the security measures, you said user they making the security measure to be easy to use for the users. I'm contemplating based on
The
this issue.
person that asked the question, please
Um.
kindly confirm if it's clear enough.
Okay.
Hello?
Concerning based on this
Please,
issue,
registration.
based on
Okay, please go
sensitive
ahead.
data to protecting sensitive data,
Yes, let me check
making
through the
the
online to
security
see if there
measure
are
easy to
questions
use,
there.
won't it affect the when you started, you said won't it affect the protection when it comes to sensitive data, since security is something that's supposed to be a something tasky for others to have access easily.
Thank you very much for that question. If you could recall, I did not say make it easy for users, because the moment you make it easy, you are simply, there's what we call
recall, I did
security
not say make it
the
easy
moment you make
for
it
users
easy,
because the
you are
moment you
moving
make it
into
easy, you are
security.
simply
So the
there's what
goal
we
is
call
not
recall. I did not
to make
say
it easy. The
the
goal
moment you make it
is to
easy,
make
you are
it
simply
clear. What I stated was ensure you have clear policies and procedures that are easy to understand. Not that the policies and procedures should be easy, but make them clear such that users can easily understand them and take away every form of ambiguity. Okay, so it's if it's clear and easy to understand, users can work with it, not making it easy for users. So there's difference between making it easy for users to understand and making it easy itself. The easy part is just for comprehension by the users and not as a way of implementation. I hope that is clear, sir. Any other question, please? Any other question? So in the case of any in the absence of any other question, let's move to our discussion question or our discussion case study. So please, at this point, I would want every one of us to analyze this and make contributions. So please, let's go through it. In July of 2020, several high-profile Twitter accounts, including Barack Obama, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. Their Twitter accounts were hacked and used to promote Bitcoin scam. The attackers gained access through social engineering, targeting Twitter employees with access to internal account management tools. So our discussion is, how did the attackers exploit weaknesses in user and access management at Twitter? Two, what role did social engineering play in the attack? Three, what could Twitter have done differently to prevent this incident? Four, how would you implement a more secure user and access management system for a company like this? So please, let's feel free. You can pick up any of these sections or any of the questions and say something on it, one, and of course, give us your reason why you are picking that or why you are saying what you're saying about it. Thank you. So anyone that is ready, you can open up the floor. Should we introduce rewards, swags? Maybe if we introduce that, everybody will be eager to make contributions and make comments. Okay, so I have a privacy tool. I have a privacy a gadget for privacy. So the best response for today, I'm going to give you one of that when next I am physically present. So let's contribute. The best response will get that. Please, physical presence, can we all hear me? Because I don't know. I've not heard anything since. Technical team, are you with us? Physical. Can you hear me? If you have any question, please go ahead and ask. If you have any question, please go ahead and ask. Okay, so I'm getting some responses from online participants. I'm going to be reading them. So someone online is saying, Daniel by name, the role of social engineering is gaining access into the employees' login details and using same to access internal account management tools, thereby gaining access to those accounts. Then another person responded, social engineering, likely through phishing OS or spear phishing in this instance. Then two, initial actor vector through which breach was made. Then more staff awareness training to detect social engineering. That is as recommendation as to what could Twitter have done differently. Okay, yes. I think someone wanted to say something physically. Please go ahead.
Just come. Just stand. Stand. Yeah.
Sir, in response to how did the attackers exploit weaknesses in user and access management at Twitter? In the first place, social engineering has to do with manipulation. So, if I think the attackers, they must have studied them, studied their strength, their weaknesses, and were able to channel their schemes to get to make sure there's a breach somewhere. Because if I'm able to study what your strengths are, your weaknesses, I could come up with enticing words. And if you're not aware in that line, if you're not aware of certain schemes and ways people can be manipulated, I can easily get information from you, and there could be a breach somewhere. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that wonderful response. Yes, any other person? So please always mention your name before you respond. That way I also get to note that. Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Uche Christopher Adiogu.
Okay, please go ahead, Mr. Uche.
Okay, should I repeat what I said? Because I just should I rephrase it?
Okay, you can
I
rephrase it, make it shorter. Let's see what your rephrased
okay.
version.
Okay, I was saying that in response to how did the attackers exploit weaknesses in user and access management at Twitter, I was saying that first of all, social engineering has to do with manipulation and using enticing words to manipulate the user. So the attackers, they were able to study the strengths and the weaknesses of the users, and they were able to come up with a scheme so as to entice them. And especially if you're not aware, that's why it's good to be well informed. If you're not aware, if you're not well informed, people can easily entice you or manipulate you to do things you're not supposed to do because you are not well informed. So I think that was how they were able to gain access, and then cause a breach there.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Uche. Please, any other response?
Yes, there is another. Good day, sir. I'm Megari Timothy by name.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Right now, talking of what role the social engineering play in the attack. Now, actually, many of the attacks experienced today, actually, social engineering plays a vital role, meaning they first of all look at the weakest person in the network, someone that has a lot of vulnerabilities they can exploit. So probably the hackers must have seen there's someone that was passing through some, maybe a stress or financial breakdown, stuff like that, and get to that person and probably introduce Bitcoin to him, which he bought and clicked the link perhaps, which they used to get access to the person. Or they could have done a phishing kind of system, pretend to be one of these top officials which accounts they hacked, and decided for some kind of security changes. Maybe they did forgotten password kind of a thing and stuff like that. From there, able to get access to hack into those accounts. Now, looking at the next questions that says, what could Twitter have done differently to prevent this incident? I think probably by then, maybe the staffs in Twitter didn't really take two-factor, multi-factor authentication seriously. So most of those things were not in place. That was why the attackers were able to exploit their network. And then how would you implement a more secure user and access management system for a company like Twitter? If I should be that head of security there, first thing first is education. Every month, I'll make sure the staffs of Twitter are being educated on cyber threats and latest developments out there. Then we look at the multi-factor authentication. Each of them must enable multi-factor authentication. And lastly, any settings they've done before it to take effect, there must be a final authorization before it can take effect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that wonderful contribution. Very, very wonderful. Let me also go through some of the online participants to see. So someone is posting online two manipulations set, that is a social engineering toolkit set, tricking employees to make them release valuable information to hackers stroke adversaries, and they were able to exploit them. It's possible, there's a possibility. Do we have any other contributor from the physical location?
Any? Yes, sir. We have another
Okay.
respondent.
Good morning, sir. My name is Faith Godwin, and so far, we just want to appreciate you today for the lecture. I'll be answering from what could Twitter have done differently to prevent this incident. I believe when the several high-profile Twitter accounts like Barack Obama, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates accounts were hacked, I believe Twitter would have known, they would have known immediately. And what they should have done was to temporarily shut down their accounts so that it won't be used. It won't, so that these hackers will not use it to exploit other weak users, because there are a lot of people on Twitter. And for the last question, how would you implement a more secure user and access management system for a company like Twitter? If you watch if you check social media, maybe if you've done a data analysis on the things we upload on social media, you will see that a lot of people view more videos, they view videos than pictures. So if Twitter can be like, maybe from time to time they will be uploading videos of awareness, creating awareness on security purposes from using the account. That would be very nice. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Faith, for that wonderful contribution. Okay, so we've taken enough contributions. Your details for those of us that responded, you're getting a gift when next I'm physically in class. Yes. So let's proceed to the final part for the day. Questions and answers on all we have discussed. Any part you're not clear with, let's dissect it further. Any question on all we've discussed? Any part you're not clear with? With regards to user and access management.
No questions, sir. see. 2.